and when stuff sounds bad, you're like, you can't get past I'm
Yeah.
listening to something, playing it back.
Yeah, once it gnaws at you, well, there's a simple solution to that. The other day I was on Tidal, and I'm just going through tracks like I've never used before. You know how they always show stuff, new music.
Yeah.
Here's a list of the master quality stuff they have. So I'm like, all right, well, let's go through these songs and let's see if I can find something new that's really good. And I'm going through it, and one thing I noticed, and I don't think we ever talked about, is that how important the mix is in the music.
Crucial.
Today's systems we have are all, for the most part, audio playback has come a long way in the last few decades.
Well, yeah.
And we're at one hell of, if you ask me, in terms of resolving power and be able to hear things in the mix, we're at a hell of a peak right now in headphones, speakers, systems, electronics, everything. And, let's talk about that, about the mix.
Well, now there's also more music being produced now than ever. Music's being produced at a rate faster than you can listen to it.
Ain't that the truth?
Well, yeah, it's just accessibility, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to make music now.
Yeah.
Record it.
Well, yeah, you can, a laptop, a bedroom, headphones, you're good to go.
In fact, a lot of them are done that way, right?
Yeah. At the start of this channel, we did a video about that, about like how much music there is in the world. And it literally is coming out like faster than can be listened to it. Like several times more every minute are being released than that minute is worth.
Crazy.
So yeah, tons of people are producing music now, and they're doing it on AirPods or Beats or their headphones they bought at Walmart, or maybe they have nice speakers, or who knows.
Yeah, the references are actually probably more what you call varied right now than they ever were, because people are doing it in their homes.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a professional studio where they all kind of use the same type of gear because they all were familiar with it. And now it's got to be quite the mix when you think about it, what's going on in terms of the source side of music.
Well, and it's how music is recorded is a lot different. Now, like, everything's like remote. Like, you have one guy play a part, in his home studio or whatever, another person. But back in the day, it was like, all right, we got a mic and we're all in the same room recording, And that's why older recordings, that's why they sound like that. It's like, just like literally one mic.
Almost like a live.
Yeah.
More. It was live.
Yeah.
And you still get that.
Yeah, it still happens.
Yeah, like there's people with like home studios and bands that come together and record in one place, but it is all over the place. I was telling about this earlier. I saw a guy on Twitter, and he was like, hey, I want headphones that I can use that'll sound like my studio monitors, and I want to mix when I'm on airplanes and stuff like that. And everybody in the comments was like, just get AirPods Max. And I was like, oh God. But there's a lot of people that think that's the nicest headphone in the world. Yeah. A lot of people don't think that there's anything more expensive than $500 in the headphone world.
And there's nothing wrong with them. They're great for listening to music.
Yeah.
But
and noise canceling and that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would not mix on them.
Yeah. Because the problem with a product like that is it's under the control of software.
Right.
Like, you don't know what it's doing to what you're mixing.
Well, if you were specifically mixing music specifically for like Apple Music spatial audio,
sure,
right?
Then, yeah.
In that case, though, I would be like AirPods Pro or something.
Yeah.
Like if someone said I'm going to use AirPods Pro to mix on an airplane, I wouldn't be mad. I'd be like, okay, it's not studio monitors, but that's acceptable.
Yeah.
They're at least they're like kind of neutral, and they have the built-in Atmos and spatial tools and all that. But there's just so much variance. Somebody's like, oh, cheapest headphone on Amazon, these $10 Sonys that so many bajillion people have bought. There's definitely people mixing on those.
Right.
You know it. There's some guy somewhere mixing a track on those, and he's like, "Oh, this sounds great."
Yeah, I remember one time. I don't know why Eric didn't have his monitor, but he's like, "Oh, I could use my TV," and this is like 2008 or something, and he was color correcting a photo on his TV, and this is before the calibration or anything. And then you take it off your TV and put it on another computer or something. And it's like, oh my, looked fine here, but you bring it over here, it's like, oh my god, yeah.
Well, yeah, music's like that everywhere, and that's part of the problem we're running into with our better headphone systems is you just have people will get into the higher end of things and they'll go, oh, now I'm not liking my music so much. It's like, well, there's probably better versions of the music you like that you need to seek out. I mean, people are probably like very similar. I know in my sense, I still listen to stuff from the 70s, the 80s. I enjoy that. That's my music. And I'm not listening to one track over and over again, but it's probably a collection of tracks that I just go to. When I just want to chill. I'm not looking for something new. I just want to frickin' have that music playing. And, and this might be a dozen albums or so. But the point is, I think a lot of people are like that. But in my case, I'm accustomed to finding music that fits high-res systems. That's what I've been doing my entire career, my whole decades, where a lot of people, they're just getting into it, and they don't realize how limiting the source material can be in recordings.
Yeah. It all starts from the source in the recording, which I mean, like, things were more consistent during a time when studios were less accessible, which, ups and downsides. Now we get more music, but the quality varies so much. And you get some things that come out of home studios that you're like, oh my God, this sounds incredible. Some guy who's like into hi-fi and buys nice microphones and nice speakers and nice headphones and really goes all out on it. That stuff probably exceeds some of the best recordings we ever had in history.
Well, passionate about their craft.
Right. People who really chase that kind of stuff more than probably some old studios even would have done, unless they were like all reel to reel and that kind of stuff. But one thing I have kind of noticed this a little bit, the mixes that you hear that are kind of crappy out there, not all of them, but a lot of them seem kind of deficient in similar ways. So like a lot of them, they'll be like really sharp and like similar parts of the treble or things like that, or they'll be really congested.
Right.
There's not much instrument separation, things like that. It seems like that kind of consistent trend where when things start getting bad, they all sort of head in that direction. And instead you end up with this kind of just really messy sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah, see, as things tend to sound better, you kind of forget you're listening to speakers or headphones or whatever. It's just like you're listening to music. And when stuff sounds bad, you're like, you can't get past I'm listening to something, playing it back.
Yeah, once it gnaws at you, well, there's a simple solution to that. Next track.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Real easy.
You guys talked about this in your last video, Like that's one of those things. It's like you're listening to something, you're like, why doesn't this sound right? And it's like, oh, I'm listening to a track that a kid in his basement made on $10 headphones that was mixed super bright. Well, no wonder it's going to sound bright on pretty much anything you put it through.
That's true.
How it is.
When you listen to these songs, there's probably very little what would you call it, provenance as to knowing where it comes from. It's not going to say, "Oh, a kid recorded this in his basement."
I mean,
on
maybe
a single
it does.
microphone
It could,
right?
with a tape deck,
And sometimes they can turn out great too.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people listen to obviously like Billie Eilish. That's a big name now in audio. Like some of those tracks are pretty well produced, and that's literally hand holding a microphone up like this in a bedroom.
Wow.
Right. But the quality turns out good. There's low noise floor and all that stuff, and that's popular. It's like pop music now. But that, like, the bedroom producer quality there's no average.
Yeah,
No.
right.
Not at all.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way speakers used to be in like early 90s and prior.
Yeah.
The sound was all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, headphones were kind of not even on the radar back then. They disappeared in the 80s when the Walkman went away, And surprisingly, almost like vinyl almost disappeared, and now it's back.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
This just came to me. This is kind of a curveball.
Yeah.
But,
Well, we're used to that.
well, so let's say I found a song, and I just love this song. You know what I mean? It's just, you know it, and a song just clicks with you.
Yeah.
But you can't find a good recording. They all suck. There's no good source of it. You want to enjoy that song on a nice system. I mean, is there anything you can do at that point?
Yes, you buy another system for the song.
Just for that
just
song.
for the song, yeah.
This system is dedicated
Yeah.
just for
It's the
this
only way to do it,
crappy
yeah.
song.
I'm running that with vinyl. I got a
Yeah.
turntable. I've got them up to 3 cartridges now, and I'll probably get a 4th. And
Yeah.
luckily the techniques, it's just
Yeah.
you could change a cartridge. You just buy shells for each one, and
Yeah.
it just unplugs, and you plug another one in, and
Yeah.
obviously you go to the phono stage and say, okay, change the impedance settings. But the bottom line is that, you'll find that you'll want a cartridge just for old school rock and roll.
Yeah.
You'll want one for, jazz and blues. You'll want one for whatever.
Yeah, no, I ran into this myself, but since I don't have techniques, it's like, oh man, it'll be
It's a pain in
an
the
hour
ass.
to change this.
Yeah.
So
To
it actually makes
physically
me
remove it
want to
from
get
a
one of
shell,
those
from a
because
head.
of that
Yeah.
ability.
That makes sense. Oh,
Yeah.
here's my cartridge for 1995 to 2010.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that kind of works.
No,
Yeah.
and I mean, assuming the music's on vinyl, that gives you a way to not have to change the system because it's a bitch to move speakers around.
Well,
you
yeah.
know?
Right.
but beyond that, yeah, I mean, like with headphones, you could do that. I mean, I'm sure people will do that. They'll get
Yeah.
some lower cost pair of headphones or something that just is soft sounding that happens to play things that aren't so soft sounding well. And I think that's why people used to have so many headphones in the past is because, they weren't as like
Well-rounded.
today's upper end.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
really well rounded. That's correct.
I think that's why I have a bunch of headphones, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like, oh, I want to listen to this today, and I'll grab a different headphone off the wall.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm listening to this artist today. Let me grab these off the wall,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and with today's higher end stuff, that's kind of the need for that's been subdued. Used to be most people have gotten rid of collections,
Yeah.
or they're sitting collecting dust because now today's higher end headphones and systems can play a lot of stuff. And I mean, even bad recordings can sound good if you have a well-tuned system. I mean, they'll sound as good as they could,
Right.
given what the recording is, And to me, I mean, I've done that. I've done it with stuff from the '60s. You'll get some music on a 45, let's say, or even a 33, right, an album, and older school stuff. Something you're used to, like from the Trogs or something, like a minuscule band that had one-hit wonder. I like one or two songs from the Trogs, but yet on a high-end system, it probably wouldn't work. But if you have a properly tuned high-end system where kind of the flaws have been removed, where it's all tweaked out well, it's smooth, and it's you got the right combination of the DAC amp, and you paid attention to the cabling and everything, every part of the system, right? And it just meshes with the speakers of the headphone. At that point, you actually can go back to the source of the recording, and it's not annoying because the annoyances went away. And what a lot of people don't realize is the reason that recordings are annoying is because the system has similar faults in the same regions where the recording was annoying.
Like compounding.
Yeah.
So it's a multiplicative effect, and it multiplies against it. And so, but it's hard to do a system like that. So most people don't. The majority, 99% of people just don't have a fully, evolved system like that because it usually takes time and patience and knowledge and trial and error and a lot of money and things that make you go,
And research and that's how it goes.
It's a lot of trial and error to really fit it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like me having like the same speakers for 20 years, now I can play anything on them. Like everything I know, I've changed everything that needed to be changed.
Yeah, you evolved the system around that, and you got.
It took 20 years though.
Right.
Yeah.
You get rid of faults. You systematically remove faults within the system chain, and what's left is the source. And you could listen to something like I used the Trogs as an example. That's anything from the early 60s or early 70s or whatever. That stuff was done on tape. They set up microphones somewhere, right? It probably wasn't an elaborate setup. These were low-budget operations. It wasn't the Beatles, and they did it. And the cool thing on a really, really high-end system is that you can hear them doing it.
Right.
You hear the mic they were using. If you knew mics, you'd know what it was. You'd be able to pick it out. Hell, you could probably pick out just about everything in
Like
it.
how
You know
big
the
the room
distance
they're
from the
in.
mic. Yeah. And if it's live, it's all, which most of them were, you could probably tell how far one guy is from the other.
Yeah, like a sense of the space and all that.
Yeah. Even though it's narrow in the older recordings, the space, you probably aren't going to get the room as much, but maybe. But you tend to get that focus on the vocals, and you could hear them really, and the emotion, I think, comes out more with that. So to me, some of the older stuff's really cool if you have a system that can play it back properly.
Yeah. Well, you look at Jeff Buckley, Hallelujah. That is the track that they demo on the Sennheiser, the Orpheus, the $50,000 headphone.
Yeah.
Every time they go and they play that headphone around, they play that song. And that song, it's not a perfect recording, It clips. There's parts of that song where the vocals clip out the mic and it distorts and all that. But that's one of those go-to songs. Every hi-fi show ever, you see that song around. Yeah. And it's an imperfect recording, but people love it because the way it's recorded, you can really hear the inflection and the emotion, and it's a very intimate recording.
Yeah, and there's two channels to the world that's more modern stuff like Sarah McLachlan.
Right.
I mean, some of those recordings are pretty good.
Well, you got the classic Jazz at the Pawn Shop.
So right. That everywhere.
It was like it was just simple. It was like a tape and two mics or something in a room. That's why it just sounds natural.
In the middle of a club or a bar.
And that's why it sounds like that, because that's what it is.
Yeah, that on the original Proprius label is pretty freaking good recording.
Yeah. And you can go to an audio show and go to pretty much anybody's setup, and that's going to be in
It's
their
playing.
library.
It's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to find.
Yeah, it puts you in that place. You know?
So it almost feels like we had this discussion. We're coming full circle because it's like, well, the mix matters a lot, but yet even if the mix is bad, you could play it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you appreciate the mix and understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. For sure.
So yeah, I guess it's the way it's always been with music.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But there's a bright side to all this also. Audio equipment's getting better and better. And while there's more people producing music than ever, that also means there's a lot of bad music being produced and bad mixes, but there's probably also more good mixes coming out than ever before right now.
It's a percentage game.
Yeah. So we're getting a big net positive of more good mixes out there. Yep. You just got to find them.
Well, and the ease of finding stuff is as high as ever.
With streaming?
Yeah, now you just open up Tidal, Apple Music, whatever, and it suggests stuff for you that you never heard, and it makes you playlists. You just hit next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I go through the Explore tab all the time. Last night, I was listening to headphones, and I found some album I never heard before and put it on. Was like, whoa, this sounds incredible. And that artist, it was their first ever album. They just released it. Nothing else by them. Couldn't find them on any other tracks or anything. It's just like they came out of nowhere with something that's great, mixed super well.
Yeah.
And that'll happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
That's the fun part about trying new stuff. 95% of it may not be your taste,
Right.
But that 5% is a keeper.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Especially when it really stands out. Because there's those tracks that you just stumble on it. It's always at like 1 a.m. or something. You're listening to your speakers,
Right.
Or your headphones or whatever. And you stumble across some track and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, the hardest part is the next day remembering what the hell it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's the second I hear that, I'm immediately like, okay, save right
Write
now.
it down.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep a notepad with a pen
Oh, there you go.
because it's idiot-proof. It's in ink on paper.
Right. Yeah, then if we're like, oh, did I add it to this playlist or not
Yeah,
or whatever?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, there you have it.
Yeah.
That's the mix. We talked about the mix. Halloween's coming closer. Can you tell? We got more decorations here?
No,
What's
actually-
spookier than a bad mix?
Well,
I don't know. A good mix. Are you a good mix or a bad mix? I don't know. Did you see Wizard of Oz?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, everyone has. I think it's been
Yeah.
on TV since like 42.
No, before that.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
We're in Buffalo.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Dorothy. On that note, thank you everybody for watching. Subscribe to us because we got more good topics coming. So make sure you subscribe so you know it's there. Take care of yourselves. Thanks.